Hello and welcome to Saved by the Bell, the Bel-Air After Show. I'm your host, David J. Murphy. Joining me this week, as always, are Nolan. Hey, Nolan.
Hey, what's going on, Dave? What's up, Gyasi?
And, of course, Gyasi. How you doing, Gyasi?
What's up? What's up? Happy to talk about the show. We got Nolan and Dave on here, ready to get going.
That's right. Good trio here to talk about Season 2, Episode 8 of Bel-Air. Of course, this is the official show of the Bel-Air subreddit, reddit.com/r/Bel-Air. So if you got any questions or comments about anything we say, want to add to the conversation, head on over there and go do that. So we're talking about, again, like I said, Season 2, Episode 8, Pursuit of Happiness. This is the episode where Will discovers the truth about his teammate's absence, and he learns about Doc. And Carlton, of course, as we've predicted, kind of goes out of control, right? So a lot of stuff, a lot of big story developments happening. I think we saw a lot of sort of happy-go-lucky, easygoing episodes, right? The reunion and other things like that. There were sort of like easy episodes, and now we're getting more into the harder hitting, dramatic stuff that's actually going to impact people's lives, right? So let's go ahead and I guess start with Will's storyline. I think that's a good place to start. He is the key focal point of the show most episodes, and he definitely had a lot of development this episode. We saw him with Lisa for a large portion of it, of course, trying to support Lisa in her efforts to kind of be, with her father and their stepmother as she goes through her pregnancy, and of course, I guess pissing off Jackie by not being there for her, and devoting some time to Lisa. So we're starting to see that relationship kind of rekindle a little bit. Maybe not as obviously boyfriend and girlfriend, but at least friends, right? We knew from the previous episode that Lisa had tried to take Will off the table with regard to even being friends. And then, of course, later on, we learned that, Will learns that one of the players was kicked off the team for essentially being a potential whistleblower to exposing some of what Doc is doing, which it seems like he's taking bribes from, I guess the way I understood it, colleges to steer different players towards those colleges. That's kind of like, I think I understand it. What do you guys think of Will's storyline this episode or this week?
Quite honestly, Will, I wouldn't say it was a boring storyline, but it wasn't like, I guess, the storyline you could fall back on to like, all right, if this episode is terrible, at least we got Will, something going on with Will we can fall back on. So it was kind of like one of those storylines where it was like, it was just enough. It wasn't enough for me to like really set it off as like, okay, yeah, this is, we starting to find out things about Doc, obviously. But I felt like even though Will questioned a teammate about it, I felt like once secret agent Jeffrey got on it, like I was like, it's gonna come out anyway. Like, right? They came out the gym after the game and see Doc arguing with the guy that he was, having staring contests with in the crowd or whatever. So I felt like they were going to get to the bottom of it regardless. Just Will. This is how Will is going about finding out about it his way. I did like the the Lisa Will dynamic kind of, coming back together or whatever. Lisa needed somebody in that time, right?
Sure.
I think Will is seeing. I'm not necessarily want to say he's dismissing Jackie, but I think he's starting to understand that Jackie is a craving, a lust. It's not really, he doesn't know anything about her yet, right? I think this episode they were supposed to, she was like, if you want to find out more about me. So he hasn't really sunk his teeth into her yet, the way that he has the background in the past with Lisa. So it was very good to see like Will be there for Lisa in her time of need. Obviously Will played in the game and he was, shooting the tray and doing the putback dunks and everything and still in the win with the steal and stuff like that. We did get to see him shine on the prep team, the AAU team or whatever it is. But yeah, outside of that, it really, like I said, to me, the biggest thing was Carlton, honestly. Like that was the biggest like plot in this episode for me. So again, like not taking away from Will, he's definitely carried him and his story for the most part has definitely carried this season to me in my opinion. But this was actually one episode where I can say like Will didn't have the most interesting plot unfolding at the time. So I'm pretty sure next episode, now that he's talked to the player, and Phil and Jeffrey are looking into the situation more, I'm pretty sure more fireworks are going to go off with him in this particular plot line. But yeah, as of right now, like it was an okay plot line for this week.
Yeah. I mean, Will, it seems like Will's kind of still like just going about the motions in the sense that like things are kind of happening around him. He's kind of just reacting to them. It doesn't seem like he's kind of doing anything outside the box, kind of just kind of going along with the plot, if that makes any sense. So it's not, like Nolan said, it's not like the worst thing in the world, but right now it's not like, oh, what's Will going to do next? Because it's kind of been, predictable as far as like, him and Lisa. When they introduce the plot line and she needs help, no one's going to think he's going to just leave her high and dry. Of course, he's going to go help Lisa. Of course, he's going to play in the game and do real well. And of course, he's going to find out why he left the team later on and then understand what's going on once they introduce that, like, there was some mystery there. So, yeah, I don't agree. It's not crazy, but it's just kind of going about the motions, which I guess makes sense plot-wise, but it's nothing kind of uninteresting. I will say, if we get into Doc's storyline too, I didn't predict it, so I will give credit. I think it may be a good mix because at first I was like, he's coming after the money. I don't know if that's realistic because these scenes were off. If he's coming after Will, it always seemed like he was kind of doing the right thing coach-wise for Will, so I wasn't really sure what the plot was going there because it was not like he was setting Will up to fail or anything. So I was, as this podcast was going on, I was wondering, like, what is Doc's in play? So it seems that the bribery scandal is about to come up, and he's been indoctrinated into that, and now it's gonna come out. So now he knows about what Uncle Phil did to get Will saved. So he may hold that against Uncle Phil and have him represent him, or have him pull some political power to make his case go away, whatever it may be. Which is why Will shouldn't have told him what was going on. But yeah, so I will say interesting that was the seems like the avenue Doc's going. I think it's a good mix because it's not like too malicious, like Doc is just trying to get everyone killed or whatever, but it's also like, okay, it makes sense why he needs one of the best lawyers in Bel-Air to be like, in his pocket. So
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Will's story wasn't the most engaging this week, right? And I agree Carlton's was, and we're going to get to Carlton's in a minute, but I thought it was interesting how Will's story pushed the Doc storyline forward, and we did get that revelation because that's the whole thing we've been kind of discussing all season is like, what is Doc's deal, right? And it was interesting to kind of learn from left field, he's taking these bribes. And so how will that pan out? And like you said, like, Doc has this dirt on Phil, even though Phil, would be the one to kind of like confront Doc about this potential issue. I wonder what's going to happen when those two go head to head. So I think we're going to definitely see that, some explosions, some fireworks there by the end of the season for sure. I thought it was interesting that Doc told his niece to like watch what she said.
Yeah.
Like, so she's obviously in on it. I mean, I think she's been on it since the beginning, right? We've talked about the whole honeypot idea, right? So I think perhaps it's all connected and it'll all come.
I think definitely. And she was ready. I think she was ready to come clean at the end of this episode. Like, she was like, come over later so we can talk about why what's his name left the team. And I think it was all going to come to heads. And it's interesting. Nolan said it was, I guess it all was going to come out anyway. Like, classic TV shows all can come out at the same time because, as you saw at the end, Jeffrey and Phil knew before Will knew what was going on with Doc. So they found out right at that moment. Will found out right at that moment, and Jackie was going to tell Will later that night.
Yeah.
So Truth was going to come out that day anyway.
Yeah, everybody's finding out everything. I think again the key is what will everybody do about this with this information, right? What are we going to do about Doc?
Yeah.
All right. Well,
I do want to say before we move on, I made a mistake. Carlton did not have the most important storyline this week. person that had the most important storyline was the return of Ashley Banks.
Oh yeah,
Of
of
Ashley
course.
Banks, her 3 minutes of dialogue. I just want to throw that out there because it was so significant that I knew we might have just glossed over it. So I just want to throw that out while I
We got to
cross.
throw attention to that because you saw when she was like, it wasn't me who snitched on Miss Hughes, and Ashley was like, it was me, and I was like, whoa, it was Ashley the whole time who really got her fired to cause sympathy for her in the school. This was mastermind plot. So
I bet it was Drew. Drew did it.
oh yeah, 100%.
He airdropped the video of them meeting up, getting her handed
Yeah.
the book.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
swear
Handing her the book.
there's no airdrop all button. They're trying to push this narrative he airdropped the whole school at the same time. There's no airdrop everyone near me button. So please, I don't know what's up.
Oh my God,
That's the most unrealistic part of the whole show.
Yeah, yeah, literally. The fact that he airdropped a student body population at once. But no, I did like the basketball.
Since you mentioned Ashley, it was nice to see Ashley having a little bit of screen time. And
I honestly was shocked. I was shocked because when it comes on, it gives you the recap, and they were talking about
they had the recap,
and I was like, wait a minute, like, are we gonna get some Ashley time? I said that.
Yeah, when they mentioned the Miss Hughes storyline, I was like, why are they recapping that? I don't make sense.
Yeah, so that
they bring her character back, be like, guess what? I'm back. I got my job back.
I was like, it would be a little odd to bring a character back because they clearly had written her out by now, and they were like, she got a job in a new school. So I was like, what would she come back for? But I thought it was an interesting twist that it wasn't the little girl who ratted her out. So I don't assume that they're gonna go into who actually did it, but because I think they wanted to assume maybe it was just yeah, Doc. I think they wanted to assume maybe it was just they just found out or maybe something else. But I think the implication was that I don't know, don't judge a book by its cover, so they were able to kind of be friends. So I was like, cool little twist. Okay, well, it wasn't her who told on Miss Hughes.
Friends, maybe more than friends, right? Maybe they'll revive that aspect of the storyline too.
They did kind of abandon that since last season. So,
well, perfect time to revive it.
Yeah, that's true. I went back to I will say that the game was kind of cool because I like how they were like, yo, we're not in Bel-Air anymore. Like, this is not a preppy private school versus private school basketball game. This is AAU, baby. Like, this is hard as nails. Kids from all over just get scholarships or pay whatever it takes to get play in this league. So I was like, yo, I like this. some real raw emotion right there.
I was talking that noise at the free throw line too. He's like, your mama still got them. Then what he said?
Oh yeah.
I was like, oh, okay. That's how we come.
I wish they made Will miss a free throw or something. I was watching, I was like, so is Will just a Bron? Like, this man just like doesn't miss. Like, right. I wish it would have been cool if he missed a free throw and then made the next one. Also, not to call us out, but they were up by like 4 or something in the last 10 seconds. So they made it dramatic, like the last bucket mattered. But I was like, wait a second, they're already up by 4. So like, even if they scored a 3 in the last 10 seconds, they still would have lost other teams. So I was wondering why they did that.
I think they were trying to set it up because like everybody shoots threes, the and one goes to the line, tie the game.
Oh, gotcha.
Okay. That's why I was kind of going with it because like as soon as I saw it was up 4, I'm like, okay, well then he has to force the foul and make the 3. Like that's what I was thinking the entire time.
So I got you. That does make sense. At first I was trying to figure out. So I guess if they would have fouled him on the 3-point line and he made it, could have been okay. It still seems like that doesn't happen too much, but.
Right. It doesn't. It doesn't.
Well, it was just good to see Will getting some basketball time in because it's been a few episodes since he's had that. Okay. I wonder how his Bel-Air team is doing. Like, they were trying to go for the championship. So I wonder if they're going to follow that up before the end of the season.
They ain't never even made the playoffs without Will. We already know what they do.
Also, do y'all think it was realistic that the Bel-Air coach was so eager to get rid of Will because that was their star player. So I feel like in real life, you're going to stretch them grades. You're going to do what it takes to keep your star player as a coach if you want to keep your position, So I thought it was thinking back.
Some coaches just had that job security, and they preach that team thing. So it's like, it doesn't matter how good you are. We need you to play within the team, play within the system. Yeah. And I mean, like they already said, they never made the playoffs before he got there. So it's not they didn't say how long that coach had been there either. Yeah. But if he has any kind of tenure there and they've been trash all this time, and for him, he was kind of on some I'd rather lose and have my team listening to me as an entire team versus me having this guy lead us to the promised land, and I have to deal with the ego
Yeah.
that comes with it.
Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
I don't know. I've never been a part of high school sports, so I don't know the dynamics there. I assume it'd be different for every, teacher and every coach and every institution. But I would hope that the coach would put the team before an individual player. But you never know. Well, let's talk a little about Carlton's storyline because he had obviously the big individual personal story developments. As we saw during this episode, he kind of got really flack from everybody. He apologized to Will, and I thought I had to actually watch this scene a few times because I wanted to hear what Will said. But he actually said, Carlton said, "I hope this. I don't know if it means anything, but I'm sorry." And then Will's like, "That don't mean shit."
Yeah,
And like,
I like that.
wow, that is cold. But I mean, I guess from Will's perspective, he's probably just tired of dealing with Carlton being sort of backstabby, sniveling, and accusatory.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I don't care if you're sorry anymore. Your apologies don't mean anything to me. And then, his engagement with Lisa and his very sort of accusatory thing with her, and it's just, he was kind of hitting rock bottom, so to speak, with his personal life and his personal friendships and stuff. So he was driven towards the drugs and went with Connor to this drug house, and the druggies took his car. What's that? Yeah, some more peace offerings.
Even though in that
Norton the peace
in that exchange that he had with Lisa, there was some truth to that, right? Because the dude that Lisa went back with had been obviously trying to get with her for years, and he was like this jerk, and she give him no mind, and it's like as soon as like her and Will break it off, she's like, we can't be friends. Next thing you know, like the next day she's chatted up with this guy. So I mean, he wasn't far off the mark with that. I mean, clearly at the time that it came, probably was and the way he said it was not the best time or the best delivery, but he wasn't lying. And now, that was honestly at that point in time in the episode, now I'm thinking about it, that was actually kind of foresight because Lisa and Will by the end of that episode were not friends, but at least there for one another, one for the other, and the other one finally kind of receiving that. But anyway, back to Carlton. The whole druggy scene and him waking up, and that just seemed weird to me. Like you just wake up in a random house that your friends were just at, and like you're the only one there. Everything's unlocked. Well, they might have locked the door and he walked out and his car's missing. I'm just like, this doesn't even seem real. Who just leaves somebody in their house? I mean, clearly they took his car. That's probably worth more than that house. I mean, it didn't look that great, the house itself, but and then him getting to the bus stop, like it didn't seem like he had a phone. I don't know if they have a payphone still a thing now. I see him here and there, like from time to time, but I wouldn't expect Carlton to have like 50 cents on him to call or whatever. So I was kind of worried, like, how did he get his mom to come pick him up? And of course, like, I loved how Uncle Phil was on some like, nah, we need to go find out the truth. Are you really believing that? Because that lawyer mind kicking in, right? He's like, you really believe that story? and Vivian is like in full mom mode. We can't go and accuse him of lying. He'll never tell us again. I'm like, that sounds such like a parent. and Phil is like, you're telling me his car was lost, was taken. He ended up at a bus stop. He told you he walked all these miles, whatever. Like something ain't adding up. Like Vivian, take your emotions out of it. That is your kid, and think of this. Think of what you're saying, right? So that was, I always like when Phil be in his lawyer mode when they be getting arguments and stuff like that, because he just wants the facts. He doesn't want your feelings involved. He just wants to know the details, and then from there he can be like, that doesn't sound right. And yeah, I mean, Carlton, I just had half a beer. For real, dude. like this is not adding up at all. So I definitely, that was probably my favorite scene of the entire episode, when Jeffrey walks into Carlton's room and he's like, you know the truth is gonna come out eventually, right? Because you're Jeffrey Bezos, like, because you already know what I do. You know I'm gonna find out. Because I already found your car, and it was 10. He's like, it just doesn't make sense. You walk 10 miles away from your car to get where you were. Nah, it's not adding up. I'm gonna get to the bottom of it. Either you're going to let me know, or I'm going to find out. So I was my favorite part of this whole episode, to be honest.
See, Carson, the return of the downward spiral, man. Season 1, we had it. He bounced back, and now the downward spiral is back in full form. I'm wondering what is the end game for Carlton. You know, like he's given master manipulation now at this point, because then he decided to flip the situation into helping out his case with the meds and X, Y, and Z. He was like, yo, the meds and the alcohol combination maybe did this to me. He told his mom, and she was like, okay. He's kind of lying to everybody. I will say I did like Will's response, or that Will wasn't just quick to let it go, and because Will did what he was, the honorable thing, and let him know, hey, this guy is the one that leaked the video of you, just so you know. And then first Carl's like, oh, I'm sorry for accusing you, and then Will's like, nah, I'm not taking that, which makes sense because that's a wild accusation to think that your own cousin would have that kind of character. That's a character attack at that point. So that's a lot harder to come back from than just like, I'm upset at you, I call you name. Like he went for his character and said that he would, do something like that to whole school. So I honestly believe, I don't think Carlton in his mind really believed Will did it. I think he was just kind of lashing out at whoever was easiest to lash out to. But still from his perspective, I get why he wouldn't forgive him so fast. But yeah, I'm curious what the end game is for Carlton. Like he's manipulating everybody. What did they want him to go full supervillain route? Because we already saw the downward spiral and then the recovery. So it'll be interesting if they just repeated the same storyline where downward spiral, recovery, back cool. So I don't know.
Nah, I think they're gonna find out this time. But I mean, we can say that for what we think is gonna happen. But I feel like it would just be poor writing for them to just keep rehashing that he
that's what I'm
hits
thinking.
rock bottom and he keeps pop back up. Like even now that his dad is on some like what he's saying ain't making
questionable,
sense, and Jeffrey's on the trail too. Like they're going to eventually, Connor's going to come into play. I can already see Jeffrey like running down Connor in the alley and like backing him up and on the wall, like, hey man, what are you doing with Carlton? And he's like, man, Carlton came and got the drugs from me type deal. I don't want any trouble, man. And Jeffrey's like, wait, he's getting drugs from you? Like, and it just comes out like that. Like I can totally see something like that happen off screen. So I feel like now too many people he has awake. He's trying to play both sides because the way that he explained it, he could have easily said like, oh, well, I was hanging out with these guys. They took advantage of me. And then that would put his parents and Jeffrey on the trail of these guys. But he's like playing it like, oh, we just had a couple of beers. I only drank half of one, and it was my meds. It wasn't like I was doing drugs or anything like that or whatever. So he's trying to navigate a very, very delicate walkway.
It's not going to end in his favor. It's not about to end in his favor. You know what I thought? I remember that Connor is a recipient as well for this Founders Award. So
he was.
I thought this was did he get? Oh yeah, okay, I guess anymore.
Yeah,
I
he's
thought
in
it was
video,
a setup. Yeah, that's a good point. I thought it was a setup still though to like eliminate Carlton. Like he leads him to the drug house. They went in some shade. I thought he was gonna get him on video doing drugs or some just to put that final nail in the coffin. Sir, if I can't have it, you can't have it too. Type.
We might.
That's true. That could still happen.
Still a lot of fallout that can come from that. So we don't know what happened. We just know he woke up.
Yeah, that's true.
He was having a great time, and then he passed out, and these guys went around with his car and left it on E. Like Jeffrey said, they found it with no gas. So
that's true.
Ain't no telling. That'll definitely be interesting. I'm actually more interested in seeing how this unfolds at this point than I am the doc. Timeline right now.
Yeah, no. When I saw the fact that he called his mom to pick him up, I thought to myself, why didn't you just like get an Uber or something like that? But then I thought, well, he still has to explain the missing car. But I think probably he could have just said, hey, my car was stolen and I took an Uber home.
Yeah, I think he didn't have his phone.
Stolen.
I think that was an implementation that he didn't have his phone, so he couldn't call the Uber. But
Yeah, because
that
Jeffrey
same,
brought him his wallet and his phone.
yeah, he left his phone and wallet in the car.
Oh,
So
okay.
maybe he could, but I'm not gonna lie. I mean, there are other ways to call Uber. He could have called someone else outside of his mom to call him an Uber. Also, I thought the Uber
He could have called
situation.
a taxi, an old school taxi.
Yeah,
Well, no, he
exactly.
didn't have his phone though. That was the thing that threw
But
me
how
off.
did he
How
get
did
in
he call his
contact
mom?
with his mom?
That's what I was wondering. Like, because Jeffrey distinctly handed him
Yeah, he
his
did not have his
wallet and his
phone.
phone because he grabbed his phone. He started going through it immediately or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's why I was like, how did he get his mom? Like, that's why I said, like, were there payphones around?
Yeah,
Are
I
they
don't
still
know.
something that works or something? So
But it's funny you said the Uber thing because even Lisa, I was like, Will was like, I'll take you to the hospital. I'm like, I mean, she can follow Uber to the hospital. Like, you don't have to give her a ride to the hospital, like if you don't want to.
Yeah, I mean,
But yeah, I was
Jazz
like,
has specifically called out Uber as a company
yeah,
that exists in this universe because
I
he's
was
like, oh,
like,
am I just an Uber driver or whatever? Did he call himself an Uber driver? I can't remember.
yeah, he
I,
did. He'd be on the red carpet with the Uber driver.
yeah, so Jazz could have came and picked up Lisa, and Jazz could have came and picked up
yeah,
Carlton. Wouldn't that be funny?
I was. If my friend is like someone needs is like car broke down, I'm like, yo, I'll call you an Uber like to where you need to go, bro. No worries. Especially if you got something to do, but
Yeah, like my brother, he called me an Uber from the airport. Like he did it.
mm,
He called it for me.
yeah,
It's like you don't even have to be the person who does it.
you
Somebody can
don't.
call it for you.
But plot gotta happen. Will gotta be the one to personally drive her to the hospital.
Drama's gonna drama. But I mean, it is nice to see Lisa and Will, back together and at least a friendly environment and friendliness between Will and Lisa's father, because we know there was some animosity
Yeah,
there, right? There was some angst, but he sees him as what he is and helping out the family, so he's going to support that, which is good.
yeah, that
Uh,
was good. I did like that scene.
yeah, so we saw Carlton's downward slide, and we're going to see the fallout of that probably percolate towards the end of the season and probably overflow and potentially affect his Founders Award, but we'll see about that. And the other storyline, we had actually some Viv storyline development, which is kind of interesting. We thought she was going to
That
lose
was
her. We thought she
that
was
was
going to lose her scholarship, and she was actually promoted. So it's interesting to
well,
see this new dynamic and wrinkle for her.
that wasn't interesting. What was interesting to me with Viv's storyline, what was interesting to me was to find out Erica was her line sister
Oh yeah, yeah.
that got with
Phil.
Phil when they took a break. And I was like, damn.
Yeah, I was like, oh, they real interwoven
I was like,
everything.
yo, I wasn't expecting that. I was like, okay, Viv finally got an interesting scenario going
And
on.
not just her line sister. She said that was like her best friend. So they was line sisters and they was real close.
Man.
Why don't you explain what the concept of a line sister is for those of us who are unfamiliar?
So they were in
Nonsense.
the same sorority at college. So they pledged together. They started at the same time, and then they went through the trials and tribulations together. And then they came out. Their probate. They ended up making line at the same time. So in a HBCU or any college really that has Greek life, your line sisters are supposed to be like your lifelong friends. That's why a lot of people join sororities or fraternities because like you get this pack of support and group that's supposed to be with you throughout the rest of your life. So just like how Phil, the people he started the firm with, those are his line brothers. Kind of the same situation with Aunt Viv, but we see that they fell out.
My wife was a part of sorority, so I'm going to ask her if that's something like, does
Oh
that
yeah.
term, is that like specific to a specific school, or is it all sororities and all fraternities? Is it just a universal term? I never heard of it, but again, I was never part of a sorority or a fraternity, so
I think it's universal. Like all sororities, I think should call like their line sister or line brothers.
yeah, okay. So what did you think about? Okay, if that's the most interesting, what did you think about the dynamic between her and her line sister? I mean, do you think that? I mean, I think Phil at the end of the episode made it clear that he wasn't going to take the job, right? Isn't that kind of like what the vibe we
Yeah,
got? So I mean, is it kind of
I
a moot point then?
I would say so. I don't. I mean, how many episodes are left this season? Right, one or two
Two.
with
Two.
this one, two.
Mhm.
So I don't see what was her name, Erica. I don't see her popping back up, but. Yeah, I mean, even navigating to that aspect when Phil kind of gave that speech, it was a little hard to watch knowing that he was going to leave these these lads high and dry. But
Yeah.
he decided to stay and help the firm. Which I don't know. I'm still. I was a good job offer. I'm not gonna lie. Like sometimes you gotta choose yourself. But I mean, it's commendable that he decided to stay. But I don't want the firm to go down, and then he goes down with the firm because it seems like they're kind of on bad terms. But
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about Phil's story. He was obviously getting kind of called out by his buddy and also coworker, co-firm founder for potentially leaving the firm, having these meetings, and then that was enough to spur him on to again stay with his firm and turn down the other job. Beyond that, I mean, what kind of story do we think Phil will have for the rest of the season? I mean, is there anything more with his story that's interesting now that he's not doing the new firm?
Well, I mean, we know he's going to be a major cog in the Doc storyline.
Yeah, I was gonna say that same thing.
So, I mean,
But his like firm stuff is kind of
yeah, I think that's
unless Doc thing is going to take down his firm.
Yeah, that might
So.
maybe.
Yeah, I would say the firm storyline is succeeded for now. I think he's fully in the mix with the Doc situation, and that's going to be Uncle Phil's relevancy for the rest of the season, I assume.
And if he finds out what Carlton is doing,
yeah,
because
he got enough on his plate.
Yeah, he's already like not believing what Carlton was saying already. So for the truth to come out, yeah, Uncle Phil is probably
Do y'all
gonna
think
lose
did Jeffrey tell his parents that the car was 10 miles away, or you think he's kind of just going to let the truth come out on his own?
Well, I think he'll probably dialogue with Phil about it. I don't necessarily. I haven't gotten the vibe that Jeffrey communicates like these little covert missions that he be on to Viv. So I'm pretty sure him and Phil are going to talk about it. And as Jeffrey says, I'll look into it. He'll probably find out like GPS where the car went, where it started from. He might pull up on the house and be like, why was this car here the other day and who took it type deal. I could totally see Jeffrey like doing some stuff like that. So, yeah.
I gotta imagine they can track Carlton's cell phone, where it was at.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure they can track that, so they'll figure out, well, why were you at this house for 8 hours or 6 hours or 3 hours or whatever it is. But, yeah. Do we care at all about Viv's art stuff piece of her storyline?
Oh yeah, I think that was if there was a way to make it slightly interesting, I think they kind of found the avenue to go that route because I was like, okay, that is a position, that the person who kind of looked out for her and gave her this crazy opportunity is now she may be her downfall. So what is she gonna do? I don't know. It's kind of similar to Phil's situation where you have this great opportunity, but it's gonna hurt, people like, close to you. So I'm curious to see what Viv will do. I don't know. I mean, maybe take the job, but who knows? I don't know. I can't say because she would be looking out for her friend, or she even said that's not her friend, but looking out for someone who helped her out. But I mean, she is getting older, and Viv is still kind of young, coming up in the art world. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think she'll take the position. I think it's just in line with what she wants to do, and I think she's going to look out for herself in that regard because she wasn't really having fun with the current person. So I think she'll do what she wants to do. And then let's see, the only other storyline was with
Hillary,
and of course that pivotal influencer house. Got to get back to there. I was feeling a little withdrawal because we didn't touch on the influencer house last episode. So I'm so glad we got back into the influencer house, and
I wasn't being influenced.
Drama.
I wasn't being influenced, and it was starting.
I haven't been influenced not one time.
But I think obviously the more interesting aspect was just LaMarcus, digging his claws into Hillary and trying to, get her back, buying her a billboard, and now she's on the rebound from, from Jazz. Although you think she wouldn't be the one to kind of be so down because she's the one who basically, she instigated the breakup pretty much, right? I mean, it was her call. So you think she'd be more like over it quicker. But
I mean, maybe
if she was so down about Jazz, why'd she go back to Jazz?
Yeah, I
Make it
mean,
work.
I say it would still hurt because even though like she ended things because of his insecurities, it doesn't mean she didn't like him or she didn't have like still those real feelings. So I understand why she would be down because just because you break up with someone doesn't mean that like you may have wanted that to happen. It just may have been what
Yeah.
needed to happen. So I get what she was down. She was in bed with full face of makeup. My girlfriend was like, okay, I guess she's gonna sleep with a full face of makeup on,
Coco Jones,
but
she can't not be made up
yeah,
all
I
day,
mean,
every
yeah, they're
day.
gonna have her at her best, and I'm not mad about it. I'm not mad about it, but yeah, the Marcus, the thirst is coming out. This man is doing whatever it takes, and is coming off a little thirsty, but still put her in an interesting position. I do like that she wasn't immediately like, okay, like let's get back together, or I love you, or whatever, or kissed him, whatever. She still was like, I'm speechless, and I appreciate it, but it's still, I got the vibe that she still needs to think about things. Obviously, rushing into another relationship, I would never suggest, weeks or however many days after her last one may have ended, but this man is doing all it takes, So hey, I mean, going out the way he wants, but he may need to pump the brakes a little bit.
Yeah. Anything on your end, Nolan?
No, I mean, like I said, I feel like it's I mean, when you like a woman, like I'm not knocking what he's doing. The guy's definitely like, I'm really into you. Like my intentions for you are pure. If you need something, like he said, like I know it's good because it's you. Like that's a dude that's like, all right, yeah, he dead on. He like set on this, like like getting her back or whatever. I just hope that it doesn't create a situation where it becomes tension or even physicality between this guy and Jazz, because this guy might be starting to get the idea like, if I'm doing all this for her and she's spending this time with me, then I might have a real chance. Because if she's not saying that, then what is he to do? What is he to assume? It's not good to assume, but at the same time, it's like, if you're doing XYZ and she's giving me her time and her attention, which she wasn't doing at the onset of all this, then maybe I'm starting to break through. And then for her, Hillary, she's very reactive and not proactive. Like, might start getting back with Jazz, and he sees that, he might feel some type of way. Like, so I just hope that they don't do something like that. I hope Hillary has matured enough over this last season. Really, she's been needing to mature since the first season, but for sure over this last season, I hope she's matured enough in her thinking that she can be like, I appreciate everything you've done for me, but I'm going to stop asking because I don't want to make you feel like you're owed anything,
give the
or
wrong impression,
or lead you, lead you on or something like that. So I hope that she does have that kind of clarity to communicate that.
maybe she wants it back though.
Of,
Maybe she does want him back.
true, but I mean, again, like if she's not saying it, then you don't want to.
Yeah.
You don't want to leave the crumbs out there to make somebody think that, and then you pull the carpet out from under them.
Yeah, it's very true.
So
She got to be communicative.
yeah,
Got to be communicative for her intentions.
Yeah, I think she wants him back. I think we're going to see that develop one way or another. I mean, at least he's being honest with his intentions. He's not trying to be shady about it. But I mean, it's still, you kind of want her to end up back with Jazz, right? You feel like that's a better relationship for her and for both of them. But I don't know. I think we need to probably see her be with some other guys and put some separation between that and Jazz, and maybe come back to Jazz later.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's 2 episodes left, so I mean, the next one is going to be the prelude season finale. So it's really, what is Jazz and Hillary's end game for this season? They're gonna, Jazz has to come into play somehow. So I'm curious to see who she's gonna choose and how that's gonna play out. So
yeah.
I
think Jazz is gonna end up with Ivy, and she's gonna
Ivy.
end up
Where
with
is Ivy? Ivy hasn't appeared. I mean, I know the Greasy budget can't be cheap, but she hasn't. It's her house, and she hasn't appeared in like a while. But
yeah,
I'm glad she hasn't appeared.
yeah, Because
Do we think we're going to see Reed before the end of the season?
Oh my god.
He's gonna come out of nowhere and congratulate Viv on her position.
Yeah, Viv is gonna walk in to talk to the original Aunt Viv, and then it's gonna be Reed just sitting there like, I knew you would come. Like super villain vibes. What's interesting though is Ivy. I remember the Simply Spike deal. Ivy directly said not to do it. She was like, this is gonna conflict with H2 Ivy, so don't do it. And then Hill just said, I'll do it anyway. And we haven't seen the fallout from that yet. So I'm curious if season finale or next episode because if she owns the house, and I know Hillary manages it, but if she says not to do a deal and they do it anyway, that's grounds for some conflict or grounds for firing. So I don't know. She's gonna come in and see it everywhere and go, Hillary gotta go, and that's gonna be Hillary's, cliffhanger storyline or what, but
yeah, I don't know. We'll find out. All right. Well, let's any other predictions for the last 2 episodes of the season? For any storylines we haven't already talked about?
Doc is definitely, I think the blackmail for Phil is coming soon. Will is gonna have to choose. I mean, obviously gonna go with Phil, but Will's gonna be put in position. I think Jackie's gonna be put in position, and Jackie's probably gonna take Will's side. I don't know. I don't know. I'm more curious to see where Carlton's storyline goes for the next 2 episodes. Because he's just lower and lower. I wonder what his end game is.
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually thinking like I'm hoping that Will he sees the connection between Doc and Jackie. Cause like I said, like Jackie to me, like she ain't got that flair of Tyra Banks from the original one. Like so him find out that she was kind of part of the whole scheme. I hope that comes out. I'm pretty sure she's gonna be on some like, I mean, it started off like that, but I actually grew feelings for you, and I just hope Will like look through that and be like, nah, that ain't the kind of people I need in my life, or whatever type stuff. Because like I said, for me, like I just haven't. I mean, I think I said that from the first time she showed up at the basketball court. I'm like, I'm just not feeling this Jackie, man. Like, like she just popping up out of nowhere, and she just doesn't fit the scenes. It's like she's kind of forced in every scene. Like she popped up at the art gallery. She was dancing. I'm like, what? Like, excuse me, I got the hiccups. I'm like, what the hell did she just pop up out of nowhere from? And then he went to go see her at the dance studio, and she was in this whole mode dance. I'm just like, yeah, I'm just not feeling this. I'm not feeling this Jackie, this version of her.
Yeah. I'm not seeing much there with Jackie and Will. I think it's gonna implode by the end of the season. Same as with his relationship with Doc. I don't see him being part of the AAU by the end of the season. Because I mean, I imagine if Doc is sketchy, then would he still be part of the AAU? Could he still, or Doc just get kicked out of it? Or like if something came out, I don't know exactly how that organization works, but it seems like Doc like runs it, or runs at least that.
I assume there's someone. That's a good question. I assume there's someone over Doc. So if something were to happen, the organization will replace, because AAU is still like under an umbrella because they have to compete with the other AAU teams.
Right. Like he doesn't own the AAU.
Yeah, exactly. He doesn't own the whole. So I assume that he would get replaced. I mean, that's a good point. I maybe next season we'll have a new basketball coach, because I doubt all the team probably will take a break for a while, but they probably just replace the coach. So.
Yeah.
I think I'm more worried about eligibility, because I don't know how the NCAA rules have changed, and the NIL and all that stuff, and how that affects AAU teams that are then used as that form these players, and then these players go to college off of them. I'm not sure how that might affect the players' eligibility. If Doc is in fact pushing these players to go to certain schools to get paid off of them. So yeah, I'm not sure how that's gonna play out. I think that's probably the bigger concern, because Will is all about, I'm trying to go D1. And if Doc has not even, maybe just even by being in the program, right? Any player that has been under his umbrella automatically lose like loses like a year or two of their eligibility or lose their eligibility altogether, that would be devastating. So
yeah,
that's what I'm more curious about, seeing if that's what's, because him taking bribe money, like, that doesn't seem as big of a deal. It's just like the fallout that could come from the players that he's working with that I'm more concerned about, just from like what I remember from the NCAA from years back.
yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point.
All right. And then, of course, Carlton will get found out at some point from his drug dealing. His dad, Jeffrey, somebody's going to figure it out. I think Viv might still have a hand in kind of trying to prevent Phil from going nuclear on his sons. But, we'll see what happens there. And then Will is... What's going to happen with Will? What can happen with Will?
Well,
he went to his dad. He went to Phil with regard to Doc. I mean, but beyond that, what's the kind of big story thing with him now? He's obviously...
That's a good question. I don't know.
I guess he gets founders because he's like, Carlton's a drug user, and so it's going to be Will. He's going to get the Founders Award at this point.
That's a good point. At first, I remember early in the podcast, or in the episodes, I was saying, I hope Will doesn't win and Carlton still gets that W. But Carlton kind of, he not, it's not who you, it's what you do. It's not who you're on the inside, it's what you do that defines you. Or to Batman. So, like, Carlton.
I love that quote. He said, it's not who I am underneath, but what I do.
Yeah, it's what you do that defines you. And honestly, another quote, it's not, this is from like Injustice, but it was saying it's not who you are like in success that your true character comes out, but in failure. And I kind of looked at that a lot because, like, a lot of people, you can act nice or act everything's together when things are going well, but when things, shit is the fan, and in real life, that's when your true character is tested. So, like, do you get loud with people? Do you get frustrated? Do you get upset? You're tested. That's when your true character comes out. Is when you're in failure, or you're not necessarily in success mindset, and then something happens. So I say that to say, we see when Shit's a fan for Carlton, he folds. He was accusing Will of this and that. He's taking drugs now, and that would be a true test of, are you mentally strong, or are you how is your character? So say that to say, yeah, I'd give that award to Will, man. Carlton, he losing my trust. He disappointed me a little bit with how he's handling things. I know he's had a hard life. Actually, I don't even know if he's had that hard of a life, but I know he's gone through struggles, and it is kind of hard being like the golden child and being the only like black person, one of the only black people at school. But I don't know. I think for Will's storyline, I don't know where it could go from here for the rest of the season, because besides, like I said earlier, just going about the motions, like he's gonna go through the motions of him versus Doc and him dealing with Carlton from an adversary standpoint. I don't see a lot of surprises in store for Will, but I'm hope I can be proved wrong. I hope to see the finale, something happens, or Will may do something that comes out and kind of makes things interesting for season 3.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't see how Will doesn't get the Founders Award at this point, but we'll see. We'll see. That'll be the big story piece, I think.
I told you they're gonna call a random name. They're gonna be like John Clark, Founders Award winner.
Amanda Chen, please come to the front. You win. Who?
I can see it right now. The Founders Reward recipient for this year is Ashley Banks.
Ashley Banks. She's gonna stand up. It was all her plan all along.
Yo, did y'all catch
Ashley
that
all
Easter
along?
egg?
Yeah.
Did y'all catch that Easter egg when Jeffrey said Ashley was going to do was it violin lessons? Cello lessons? Because you remember, like, an old Fresh
the original one, yeah.
Like, she was doing it, and like Will came in and was like, nah, we ain't doing this. I think that's when he taught her how to play the drums and everything. Yeah. And stuff. So when I heard that, I'm like, yo, that's a callback a lot of people probably missed.
Yeah, actually, I did miss initially, but I do remember it coming back when she was playing violin in the old show. So I like that they did put that in there. I like those callback references. And also, I don't know if he called this one out for the last episode when they were like, "Man, you really from Philly?" He was like, "Yeah, born and raised." So I was like, okay.
Oh, from the intro show.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I never did it, but I figured it. I'm sure they've said all the words for the song. We could probably put together a collage if we really want to. But Anyways, all right. Well, that's been our chat and discussion over season 2, episode 8. We got 2 more episodes left this season.
2 more episodes.
So it is definitely ramping up. 2 more episodes, right?
Yep, 2 more.
Yep.
2 more.
Yeah, so definitely ramping up. Some stuff's going to happen. Things are going to go down. Who's going to be leaving the house? Who knows? Who's getting voted off the island? Who's getting shot? What's going to happen?
Yeah.
I want to see the drug dealer guy who died last season come back. Be like, I've been alive.
Oh gosh.
We're going to see Will's father again. Who knows? So many different things could happen.
Also, an interesting thing for you guys to do. I rewatched the original fan film because I want to show my girlfriend. I was like, if you want to know like how this concept for the show started, check out the fan film. So maybe rewatch it this week, and next week we can see how the difference between how Bel-Air ended up versus kind of the concept for it. It's definitely interesting to see the parallels and where you see kind of when you watch.
Well, the fan film, and I've heard other people say this, is much darker than what the show actually ended up being, which is a good thing, because I think there's only so much dark you can take, and it can be overly oppressive if it's like overly dark all the time. So I'm glad they sort of found a good middle ground there. Yeah,
definitely. That's a big difference. It's like this show is definitely a lot more lighter than that and what it looked like the intent was for the original show.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, for Gyasi and Nolan, I am David Murphy. This has been Saved by the Bell, the Bel-Air After Show podcast. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see y'all next week.
Peace.